That's it. We're live.
Is this thing on?
Welcome to another episode of Voyage of the Geek, where we talk about all things in the geekosphere from a unique perspective, shall we say.
True.
Myself, Dave Scotland, Dan Miller.
Dan Miller. How you been, Dave?
Not too bad. I've got a flu coming on, mate. I can feel it in the back of my throat.
Yeah, right.
Normally I've got these blue tablets that Mum dug out for me once, some kind of health remedy, PCP tablets.
Okay.
And I just pump these into me for about 24 hours, and normally it keeps everything away. But
Right.
I've run out of them. So I can't get my my PCP IP tablets.
I've been spared so far. I have this suspicion that the change of the seasons is what causes this for some reason. I don't quite know why. It allows the bugs to grow or something or other.
I think the remedy
Hmm.
usually revolves around scotch. When you can't get these PCP tablets, or usually a combination is pretty good as well.
Yes, provide an environment in which they can't live.
Absolutely. It
Yes.
kills just about anything. This probably explains the proliferation of the Scottish people across the planet. They've outlasted a lot of people because they're heavily into the killing of the bacterias. So what have you been pondering over the week?
Looking at all sorts of different things and brought along a couple of things to discuss here on the show. You want me to go first?
It's up to you. Your call. You've been first twice.
Oh,
I don't mind, but I don't mind.
All right, I'll go first again.
I like the because you're far more organised than I am.
Oh, okay.
It sets the tempo.
Oh, right, okay.
And the professional level, and then I just tail off.
Just stagger in at the end. And
Just tail it off to wherever it gets us.
all right.
Go for it.
Okay, jolly good. So previously we've been talking about all sorts of different things, including computer games, computer space games, one of them being No Man's Sky, and procedural generation and stuff. And we might have Rick come on sometime
Yes.
in the future. And he mentioned No Man's Sky to me.
Yes,
And he's been playing it. So
he was on board early.
what do you mean on board?
Like,
was he?
yeah,
Early backer or whatever?
No, as in it, like almost the weekend it was released. I think he jumped into
right,
it. So
okay.
he's been into it at least. I don't know. It may have been in the earlier days as well.
I think he has been into it. So hopefully we'll get his opinion on it and check out what he has to say, because I'm sure he's got some good insights. So, I was thinking about space. So you can see here on our little Mindomo neural net thing that we've got going here, I've got space. Alpha Centauri. I went out to dinner with the parents the other night, the olds, and we were talking about various different things, and I asked them, because I was going to kind of talk about this little thing that I'm about to talk about, this, or at least some of it, space news. So I asked them, what's the closest star to our star? And it's like blank stares, like they had no idea.
Crickets.
Crickets, exactly. So yeah, that was like, guys, come on. So anyway, it's the closest star is Alpha Centauri, right? So
That's what I would have backed Alpha Centauri if you had asked me the same question.
all right, so
Would I be right?
you would have been right. And I would have been right too if you had have asked me what's the closest star to our sun, right? But if you ask me what's the second closest star to our sun,
Gone.
I no idea. So, yeah. Anyway, so Alpha Centauri. So Alpha Centauri's been in the news recently.
Uh-huh.
Are you aware of
No.
any news items
Oh.
associated with Alpha Centauri?
They've found some likely contenders, like some planets that could prove interesting.
They have found some planets that are likely contenders that could prove interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. As you may or may not know, Alpha Centauri is probably one of the brightest stars in the sky.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Does it
'Cause it's
sit
the
in the
closest,
constellation?
right?
Do you know?
Yeah. It's in the constellation of
Orion.
Well, it's
Part of
probably in
Orion's
the
belt.
Taurus. Is the I don't know where it is.
Taurus As in the,
I mean, that's why it's got name Centauri. It's Alpha Centauri.
So you reckon Taurus?
I imagine it's
I
Taurus.
think it's a pretty good bet.
It's probably the brightest star in that constellation.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Remember, your truth value may vary on this show, but that seems reasonable. Seems reasonable. All right. So, and it's made up of 3 stars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's a pair of stars that sort of circle each other, very close to each other, and one star is bigger than our sun and one's smaller than our sun. So it's a nice kind of happy little family. And then there's this other star which is called Proxima Centauri, right? And that one orbits the 2 stars a very, 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 very long way away.
Mm-hmm.
So long away that I think if you look up into the sky, you can't see the Alpha and Beta Centauri. They're too close. So all you see is one very bright star.
Okay.
But Proxima is actually further enough away, so in the night sky, you can't see it with the naked eye, but it's separate from the other 2. So people have been checking it out, and then recently there was a what they thought was a discovery of a planet circling the Alpha Beta, but no, turned out it wasn't. But some people have been checking out Proxima Centauri, looking for a planet there. And there was this group, and I'll just go into this map that I built here, called the Pale Red Dot, which is a play on words for the pale blue dot from Carl Sagan.
Yep.
And so essentially, these are the people. This is the release. We are a team of astronomers running a campaign called the Pale Red Dot. We have found definitive evidence of a planet in orbit around the closest star to Earth, besides the Sun. The star is called Proxima Centauri and lies just over 4 light years from us. The planet we've discovered is called Proxima b, and this makes it the closest exoplanet to us. Therefore, the main target that we should develop technologies to search outside the solar system.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, and they think that this is a rocky world.
Yep.
And they think it's probably only just a bit larger than Earth.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, and the other thing that you need to know as well is that Proxima Centauri is a tiny star.
Oh, okay.
It's
not like ours.
No, it's like a bit bigger than Jupiter.
Okay.
Right. But it glows and it's like it's on fire or whatever, right? So it's a big hot Jupiter, and then there's this planet that's circling around, and the planet has a year. Its year is 11 days.
Oh, really? So it's whipping.
So it's whipping around there, right?
Yeah.
It's whipping around really fast, and that means that it's also very close.
Yeah.
To Proxima.
Yeah.
Right. But it's potentially a rocky world, and the other thing is that it's in the habitable zone. All right. The habitable zone. So that means that, but all things being equal, you could have liquid water on this little planet.
Yep.
There are a couple of caveats though that it's probably tidally locked.
Yep.
All right. So that means that one side potentially always faces the star, or what sometimes happens is that these planets get into resonances.
Yeah.
And so it's a 2 and 3. So it might the planet might rotate 3 times when it goes around the star twice. It's in this sort of strange beat that it gets going into itself after 1 million years or something. Right?
Yep.
All right. So that's where we're at. Another potential issue is because it's so close to its little star, it's probably being pulverized by all sorts of gamma, beta, alpha, X-ray things. So, but the end result is that 4 light years from here, the closest star 4 light years from here, has something that you could probably stand on.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the takeaway message that it's it's like this pond full of lily pads. The lily pad next door can probably stand on it.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So what they said here on these are the pale red dot people who I think are the ones. Yeah, these are the ones that found it. So they're talking about. This is where we should explore the next solar system.
Mm-hmm.
So, where to next is the actual question that I want to talk about for this this thing tonight. So where to next? This is where to. This is where we need to be going, right? So imagine you had the space shuttle, and you took it up into space, and you took it to a space petrol station, and filled her up with gasoline, right? And you strapped on 2 extra tanks. You filled them up as well, and then you pulled up the revs and dumped the clutch, and went as fast as you could until all your fuel ran out. Mm-hmm. How long would you imagine that it takes you to get to Alpha Centauri?
It's thousands of years, isn't it?
Yes. You're probably one order of magnitude out. It's 70, 80, 90, 100,000 years to get there.
Yeah.
And we live in the internet generation, and we don't want to wait 100,000 years for something.
Yeah.
We want it now, God damn it. So what we're going to need is something better.
Better than what?
Better than the
space
shuttle. Better than the space shuttle full of bloody petrol, right? We're going to have to come up with something a bit smarter.
Absolutely.
To get to Alpha Centauri. All right. So, are you aware of the New Horizons mission that they had to Pluto just recently?
Yes.
So they sent a piano to Pluto, right? It's like the size of a grand piano, and a big rocket on the back of it, and they shot it out. I think it did a whip around Jupiter, and then it got a zillion miles an hour, and managed to get out to Pluto inside, I don't know, I'm totally guessing here, but it was like 8 years or something or other to get out to Pluto. So that's one thing. But the thing about that mission was that once you get out there to Pluto, you can't stop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a done deal. You're like a bullet.
Yeah.
And you can't get locked into an orbit around Pluto. It's too small.
And you'll get torn apart as well. Surely.
Well,
like the gravity required to pull you in
would probably tear you apart. Yeah.
It would be too strong for you to survive.
That's right. Well, it would have to be because you're going so damn fast. Yeah. Something like that, right? But Pluto doesn't even have enough of that damn gravity. Yeah. So you just go.
Because I've never heard that as posed as a problem before, because I've heard the argument of how much fuel you would need, right? Because it's exponential.
Yeah,
the faster you want to go, the more fuel you need, the more power you need. So and then you weigh half the planet.
That's right.
But no one's ever mentioned that you need a whole lot of fuel to stop.
That's right.
Like you're going to stop, you've got to fire the thrusters.
Point them the other way.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to take even more fuel, double the load, if you want to stop. So like the New Horizons, so you can't stop.
Yep.
So with that in mind, how are we going to get to Proxima Centauri? We're going to have to make a much lighter spaceship. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a website that's going to start thinking about this. And just to whet your appetite, what we're talking about is a spaceship that's measured, its weight is measured in grams. Mm-hmm. And then the idea is we're going to accelerate it very fast.
Okay.
Right, up to 20% the speed of light.
Right.
So very, very fast.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the website we're going to check out, and it's called Starshot.
And are we talking about a message or a vessel?
We're talking about a spaceship.
Okay.
It's a vessel, but you can't sit in it. It's like it's going to be the size of it's a large mobile phone or something or other. It's small.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so this is Starshot. So this is the first thing we have to do is we have to talk about who's on board here on the board.
Okay.
And we've got some boffins.
Yeah.
And we've got some rich people.
That's right.
Okay, so we've got Stephen Hawking, who's no doubt putting his brain the size of a planet towards this problem. And then we've got Yuri Milner, founder of DST Global, and Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook.
Wow.
And I understand, though I can't explain it very well, that they've got a couple of NASA boffins.
Yeah, well, that would attract some interest.
Lurking around as well.
Like that's quite a trio there.
Yeah, so that's quite a trio, exactly. So what are they going to do? They've got this crazy plan for a spaceship to send to... And so this is going to be how it works. What you have is you have a spaceship the size of a mobile phone. And it's actually a sailing ship.
Oh, okay.
And it's going to have a sail on it.
How big is the sail?
It's only the size of meters.
Oh, good.
It's measured in meters, so maybe 2 meters, 2 meters, something like that. And it's a light sail.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So it hitches a ride with light.
So it hitches a ride with light.
Okay.
Or more exactly, what you do is you grab a photon of light and you chuck it at the thing.
Oh, okay.
And then the photon hits the sail,
Yep.
ding, and it actually pushes the spaceship just a little bit. So how are you going to push this sail along? How are you going to push it? You're going to use frickin' laser beams.
All right. From Earth-based.
Earth-based frickin' laser beams.
That's impressive.
Okay, so here's the plan so far, right? You've got this thing that's essentially some sort of mobile phone, and then it's going to have this big sail around it, right? This big sail. And then down on Earth, up in the Chilean mountains, there's going to be this array of frickin' laser beams, and they're going to, and this thing will be sitting somewhere up in space, and then these frickin' laser beams, these big frickin' laser beams are going to shoot the thing, and then they're going to shoot it with big freaking laser beams.
Yep.
And that's going to sort of overcome the fact that the thrust you get from a little pulse of light is minuscule. And so the light will hit and it'll push the thing along. And they fire the freaking laser beams at it for like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes.
Yep.
And then that accelerates it up to 20% of the speed of light.
Yeah.
And,
So how do you stop it?
well, like the New Horizons, it's a one-way ticket and you don't stop it.
Oh, you don't stop it?
No, you can't stop it.
So what is its purpose?
It's going to go to Alpha Centauri.
It's a beacon. Is it a beacon?
Yes. Like I said, it's a mobile phone. We're sending a mobile phone to Alpha Centauri.
Is it? But it's got a short life. Like the beacon can. It's eventually going to fly out of that system, isn't it?
Out of our solar system.
No, out of that one.
Oh, yeah. It'll just keep
It'll
on
just keep
going.
going.
No, yeah.
So it's only going to be a beacon for a short amount of time.
That's right. So it's like the New Horizons.
Yep.
As it goes past, it's got to do what it's got to do, and then it's gone.
Okay.
Now, one of the advantages to it is once you've invented this spaceship, because they're only the size of a mobile phone,
Yep.
you pack about 150 of them into another spaceship and you put it up in orbit.
Yeah.
And then this little thing will, eject one, and then the freaking laser goes, pew, pew.
Yeah.
All right, and then you put another one, pew, pew.
Yeah.
All right, and then you just fire off as many as you want to wherever you want. And another thing that you can potentially do is you fire at Alpha Centauri, you fire 60 or 100 of them, but all at slightly different speeds, so that they spread out into an array.
Yeah.
And when it gets there, the first one talks to the second one and sends messages all the way back to where? Here.
So in theory, I got you. So it's just jumping.
It's like a relay thing.
Pony Express.
Yeah, Pony Express type of thing. All right. So,
Well, what we're talking about though, you're talking about moving data, right? Potentially, because even if data is written on a brick, small brick,
yeah,
and stuck inside, you're moving data.
Yep.
At the speed of light.
Well, 20% the speed of light.
20% the speed of light across the universe.
Yeah.
So, if we crack the human, the data that maps a human, an individual.
Yeah, like a bunch of DNA or something like that.
For an individual, like that deep, right, data set. Then we have synthetic. We're already growing.
Yeah.
Tissue and flesh and all this sort of stuff.
So you said a mobile phone with a very small hospital.
Potentially, we're talking about humans traveling at the speed of one third the speed of sound. The speed of light.
20%.
20% the speed
20%.
1/5.
Yeah. So what you get is, at the moment, what you get is you can send this thing. It's got to go 4.4 light years, and that would normally take us about 70,000 years, but you reduce that down to 20 years.
Wow.
Okay, so you can get it down to 20 years.
That's pretty good.
So that's the idea. So now there are some challenges involved. And this is a cool thing about this website, because they've also got listed here all of the different things that they have to do. So this is the things to do list.
Oh, okay.
Right? And they've also got a breakdown of how the spaceship works.
Yep.
Now, they've obviously got Stephen Hawking, and they've given him, 2 or 3 cans of Red Bull.
Yeah.
And they've said...
He's gone nuts.
He's gone nuts, exactly. So I'll go through this list and we'll just take a quick look at what they're thinking and the bits and pieces that you need to make the ship work. All right. So the first one is, so you imagine we've got a mobile phone, or we've got a frame, right? And we're going to start sticking bits on it. And it's got to weigh grams in the end, in measured in grams. So the first one is photon thrusters.
Okay.
So it's got to have rockets on it itself, so that it can rotate itself and turn around things, right?
Measured in grams.
Measured in grams. But it can't have a rocket with fuel in it because it's way too heavy. Yeah. So it's going to have, what they're planning here is photon thrusters.
Okay.
It's got little friggin' laser beams on it. Yeah. And
it's shooting light.
And shoot light. And to turn itself, it just leaves that on for, I don't know, 6 months or something or other, which will slowly turn it around to point a little bit to the left.
Yep.
Okay. So that's the first thing, photon thrusters. Next, it's got to have a camera on it.
Okay.
And they're tracking camera technology. So if you have a look here, and we were talking about this type of stuff last week. So I'm reading off the thing here, a sub-gram scale 2 megapixel camera. Cameras are currently widely available, very low cost.
Yep.
And they've got this sort of this trend happening, a doubling of the pixel value for the same mass every 2 years. Okay. So it's got to have a camera on it. So it's going to take a photo when it gets there. It's got to have some bunch of microprocessors. So we've got to have some sort of computer on there. It's got to have a battery. And this is one of the big challenges, that because batteries are heavy and you've got to have you've got to have some sort of amount of power. So they've got here, you can see words like plutonium-238. Yeah. It's got to have this hyper-powered mega mini battery on it. It's got to have a power management system. So that's the thing that turns things on and off and makes them do whatever it has to do. So it's got one of those on there. Here's an interesting one. It's got to have a protective coating on it. Because
protecting from
space.
From junk and rubble and
stuff in space.
Matter
Real in world, space.
Physical matter.
Because you're going to be going at 20% the speed of light.
Yeah, crazy.
So anything that hits the spaceship.
Yeah. We should probably put that one in its own column, shouldn't we?
What do you mean?
Well, it's the realms of fantasy, isn't it? Like, how do you protect anything that's traveling that fast through you?
Well, how you do it is you need to have Stephen Hawking on your team with at least 2 cans of Red Bull.
Yeah.
And so they're actually doing calculations. So they're calculating how much space dust they're likely to hit.
Yeah.
And because it's space dust is what we're talking about. We're talking about a molecule.
Yeah,
of stuff. So they're
like
not really
like a grain of sand.
Oh, but even smaller than a grain of sand.
Really? Yeah.
You're much smaller than a grain of sand.
Yeah.
And so anyway, they've got penetration values and armor values, and they're calculating masses and speeds, and they're trying to devise this stuff that, and it seems plausible that, it's basically a big bunch of atoms. If a big bunch of atoms hit it at 20% the speed of light, hit the ship, that it'll only penetrate in 2 millimeters into the protective shield on the front of your mobile phone spaceship. Okay, so you got to have a whole bunch of that stuff. Integrity under thrust. So it's going to, for 8 minutes, it's going to go from 0 to 20% the speed of light.
8 minutes.
Well, they didn't quite say, but that's what they mean. They mean it's a very short amount of time.
Yeah, there's acceleration going on.
Yeah, so you're going to accelerate. So it's got to have structure. Stability under the beam, because if this thing gets a wobble while you're shooting the beam at it, it'll just go bananas. Cost, phase, atmosphere. So they're going to have to shoot the laser beam through the atmosphere, so they're going to have adaptive optics.
Yep.
Optics.
Do they have to shoot it through the atmosphere? They probably need power. Yeah.
What are you going to, if you're going to put it in space, what are you going to plug it into?
Yeah, that's it.
Because later on they talk about how much. I'll show you here. How much power you're going to use.
Oh yeah.
And the power that you need for the frickin' laser beams is measured in gigawatt hours.
It's not 1.21 gigawatt.
It's almost. And if you go to Wikipedia and you have a look at gigawatt hours,
you'll get Dr. Emmett Brown.
But essentially what it says is power stations over very long periods of time, measure energy in gigawatt hours.
Okay.
Small nations measure power
Yeah.
in gigawatt hours. So this is what we're talking about to fire these laser beams. So you've got to have this light sail, and it's got to be made of special stuff so it doesn't melt when you shoot the lasers at it.
Mm-hmm.
Precisely determining the orbital position of the exoplanet, because it's kind of going to be dead reckoning. It's going to be like, I reckon, let's have a go. Pew.
It seems like there's a whole lot that has to be developed that doesn't exist. Some of it, scientific discovery that has to happen there as well, based on a plan. Like they have a plan. And then they've said, that's going to be the plan.
Yeah.
Now go and invent a whole bunch of other stuff so that that
doesn't exist
that
at the
plan.
moment. Yeah.
So if we're going down a pathway that involves having to find a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't exist, why do we need that plan and not just magic carpet, man?
Well, if you can invent magic carpet.
But to me, I don't see a difference in imagining one solution that uses everything we already have, although that solution is completely unobtainable currently, or a solution that makes sense, but it requires 100 things that we don't have that we have to go and find. That to me, there's no difference there. That is just as crazy as some of the things you need to make that actually work.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying, but what these guys are saying is that some of this stuff already exists, some of it is in development, and some of it actually has to be invented. So there's a bit of a spectrum there. But what they're saying is that it's plausible.
Oh, okay.
So that's the deal. It might not exist yet, but it's plausible that you can make a nano film that can actually resist the energy of the freaking laser beams. Yeah. Stephen Hawking, when he's drinking his Red Bull, can think up a way that you could be done.
Yeah.
But you actually have to do it. And that kind of ties into another thing. Like if you imagine, like CERN, CERN, the Large Hadron Collider, they had to invent the internet because there's so much data being captured to analyze it. They invented the internet. The internet was essentially invented to service CERN.
Oh, really?
So that they could process the freaking data. So at one stage back in 1978, there was a list like this, and some crazy guy on Red Bull said, we're going to need a freaking computer the size of a planet to do this, right?
And someone worked out how to do that.
Yeah. And when I was talking with the parents last night, and I was talking to them about this, they sort of brought up the point, why? Why would you ever do this? Why would you even bother? And the answer, I think, for that is, and there might be more answers and there might be better answers, but one of the answers is, to make CERN, you have to invent the internet. Yeah. And CERN itself, when you're whizzing around little protons, you don't really get anything out of it, apart from the glory of now knowing more stuff. But you do get the internet out of it, because you had to make the internet to make it. Yeah. And to get yourself to another planet across... what you're going to get in the end is you're going to get this blurry photo of a smudgy planet, and people are going to go, fuck yeah. And then a lot of people will say, well, why do we bother? But in the end, we'll have all of this stuff that we've invented, and that's the stuff that'll go on your fry pan so that you can cook eggs 20 seconds quicker than normal and all of that sort of business.
Absolutely. And that's exactly how my argument falls over, that it doesn't hold water, because it's the side effect of all that development. Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, then there's a whole list here. We don't perhaps need to go through too much more, but they're thinking about how does the camera work? When does it get there? They have to point the camera at the planet. How are they going to do that? And all
maintaining functionality over decades in space.
Yeah. One of the advantages of that is that it should be cheap once they eventually get it all organized. Oh, yeah, it's very expensive to make very cheap things, and then you can just shoot off.
Just 100. Keep shooting.
Yeah. If they break, doesn't matter. Shoot off another one. laser sails, and then the last thing that they have to they have to do is that then the spaceship has to still have enough power to send a it can't stop.
That's right.
Can't
It's not
stop.
stopping. Yeah, that's
But it
right.
has to send a laser beam to transmit
The signal.
the signal back, transmit the photo
Yep.
back to Earth.
Receiving images with laser beam array and sending images with laser using sail as antenna.
So it kind of shoots the laser beam at itself at the sail to use that as an antenna to broadcast the
So the
image.
same laser that we're shooting it with to get it there also can hold data.
Well, that
talk
yeah,
to it.
I'm not sure how that works, but that same laser somehow picks up the signal as well. Yeah.
Cool, man.
So that's it.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I knew that Zuckerberg was sticking his money in some developmental programs for scientific-based, power and energy and things like that.
I think he's invested in a satellite or two
Yeah.
or a something or other.
Yeah.
I have to check on that. But
And I think he actually cares. I don't think his moral ground is solidly based on profit like some of them.
So let's end with a short movie. I'll pass it over to you at the end of the movie, and we can get you. You can give us some critiques on your impressions of the
Animation.
animation quality.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So anyway, here's our little nano spaceship.
Yep.
It comes out of the mothership. Where there's another 150 of them all lined in there. There's our friggin' laser beams.
Okay. Whoa.
We just use the energy that a nation would produce.
Yep.
And we get out another one. Another one of the things that they said was a challenge is that the Earth's moving as well. So that's why they've only got to find like 9 seconds. So anyway, it then gets itself into a more, to use a funny word, aerodynamic
Oh, okay.
attitude.
Well, it would be about the debris.
Yeah, so it hits less dust. They reckon they can calculate that it might hit 1,000 particles on the journey.
Okay.
Is what they imagine that it will hit.
Mm-hmm.
So they've just got to survive 1,000. They arrive. Alpha, Beta, Proxima. They go past.
Awesome.
They have to turn themselves, take the photo.
Yep.
And then they have to reorientate themselves, change the thing, and then send the signal back.
Awesome.
And this beam diffuses out. And then this array has to then try and pick up the beam as it diffuses over the whole Earth. And there you go.
They would have been better just using black lines on white paper. Because it's so bad, it takes your attention away from the science.
It does a little bit.
And it makes it look silly.
It's a bit funny how, there's a lot of global illumination going on here.
Yep. And the texture on the ground there is stretched out over kilometres.
Yeah.
The same texture. Yes, it's terrible.
It's terrible. And the textures on the rocks here.
it's all stretched and the foreground stuff is really awesome. So no, this is not how you present a serious what's it called? Breakthrough Starshot animation full. So it was the full version. The director's cut.
That's right.
That's cool, man. I did like the seeing it illustrated like that made a big difference. Sort of you sort of understood it, but you also immediately saw some of the issues, the problems.
Mm-hmm.
So 8 minutes it fires a laser.
I'm just making that up, but it's a very short amount of time.
Cool.
So they don't spend 2 weeks firing it,
Cool.
Yeah. Well, they can't spend 2 weeks because the Earth would just rotate around and...
Well, I'm thinking it can't be less than 12 hours, can it?
No, it can't be
Unless
less.
you stick it at the North Pole.
Well, that's a good thought.
North and South.
We should write in and say, Mr.
They could do
Hawking,
that. Yeah.
You think of that?
Shoot
But
it
I don't
from
think
one
they
of the
can put it
poles.
in space Because how are you going to get that amount of power up to your spaceship? I don't know.
No, you're right. You're right. You would have to store a lot of solar energy over a year or something to get that sort of power.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe longer.
yeah, yeah.
Very good, sir.
Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah, I like it. This is definitely something that I think you'll like. In fact, I'd be very surprised if you weren't already completely aware of the Strandbeest.
What?
Have you heard of the Strandbeest?
I might have seen one of these.
This
Strandbeest.
This is the Strandbeest, which is let me just stop that for a second. Which was developed by Mr. Theo Janssen, and basically let me show you the mechanism that he founded and developed. So essentially, there's an equation that is represented by this structure that he came up with, and it's the numbers. It's how the numbers all work and the angles.
Okay.
Watch how it works. So he worked out that if you drive it around a central pivot point, you get
a walking motion,
an arc on the end point or the end node, similar to exactly what we look for when we're animating. We go to the wrist and the ball, the heel, and we look at the trajectory, and we see the trajectory to make sure it's smooth and it's arcing properly and it travels flat across the ground.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is. This is designed. This mechanism is designed to create that arc, which is common for walking. Now, if you took a vehicle, stuck it on dry sand, and there's a myriad of surfaces, right, and got it to go across it, it's terribly inefficient. It's terrible because it stays consistently connected to the surface the whole time.
Okay.
And that becomes a problem. Whereas humans or animals, we step over things.
Yeah.
That's how we walk through sand.
Yeah.
That's how we walk through water and over rocks and things like that. So what he did is he realized that he could make arrays.
Yeah, okay.
Multiples, all driving off the same central point.
Yep.
And that led him to the evolution of the Strandbeest. Now there's no mechanical process going on here. Okay?
Well, hang on. There's no engine or anything.
No engine at all. It's wind. Now these ones here, these are different. The way these work is there's some gears that are these big long sticks here. He uses gravity to start the process, and then gravity takes over and the weight of the stick. And while it's doing that, it's pumping air into bottles, plastic bottles.
Yeah.
So he's storing the wind. So what it does is, as this thing walks, it stores the wind, which starts the process again if the wind dies off.
Right. Oh, that's crazy.
Yes.
Look at this thing.
I know. It's awesome. So these are those things. He's got these sails, and when you turn them into the wind right, they do this. And while they're doing it, they're storing, you can see the bottles along here?
Okay, so that's storing up pressure, air pressure, right?
It's storing up the power of the wind, is the way he terms it. But they start to look elegant and posh, don't they? And sort of, and beautiful. He calls them animals.
Yeah. You can see
the
why.
phrase Strandbeest literally means beach beast.
Oh, okay. Yep.
But they've evolved over the years. You can see these bottles here, and there's some plastic hoses. And so this mechanism here is pumping air into these bottles with the valve. And then the valve is tripped when it starts, when it gets full, it's tripped and then releases and moves the whole thing forward again.
You can see a cascade going down the thing.
Like a wave,
rippling down.
Yeah. And that's the mathematic nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy to look at them and go, no, there's got to be a little motor in there or something. But one thing to notice, look how smooth the chassis is. The main, it's incredibly efficient. It's because that's wind. And you'll notice he's not in a hurricane. Well, this is a little rainier.
Yeah.
But these ones here, look at the waves out there. There's not even white caps on the water, so it's not blowing a gale, and yet it's enough for these things. So they must be incredibly efficient. They're made out of PVC pipe.
Oh, right.
It's just probably about 2 centimetre or 1.5 centimetre PVC pipe, so it's quite small stuff. And surgical tubing is how he lashes it all together.
So it must have like a little turbine in there when that opens the valve and the air pressure comes out and it turns a turbine somewhere, and the turbine is the central shaft.
There's no power. Is that what you mean?
But he's storing like high pressure air, right? He's pumping air in.
Yeah.
And then when it walks, it's using the air to make it walk.
To start the process. Yeah.
Okay.
To keep it going. It runs out a little bit, and it starts it to keep it going. As far as, that's what I can make of it. A lot of the stuff that's available, look at the amount of legs on that thing.
It's like a caterpillar or something.
Yeah. I love where this ends up.
Oh, this thing's awesome.
It's exactly the same mechanism. It's just got coverings.
Yeah, that looks awesome.
And it's made a lot more efficient, or a lot more aesthetic.
So he's just pulling it, and it just cycles through its walk cycle.
That thing weighs 2 ton,
sure.
or 1.5 tons or something like that. And he can just pull it with one hand because it's incredibly efficient. Yeah, you can see these things pumping those rods, and they lead to the bottles.
I'd like to see where the...
Look at this
what
one.
the hell?
I think this is the use of the water, the air, is actually driving this process. So he's got a piston there.
Oh, what's it doing?
It's just hammering in a stake. I could never work out why.
Oh, right, okay.
There's this animal hammering in a stake. So that was sort of the evolution of the Strandbeest, and many other people have jumped on and have definitely a love relationship with the Strandbeest, including Adam Savage from Mythbusters.
Oh, sweet! Did he make one?
He made one. And this is him. Now, what I want to show you is during this, which seems to be some sort of public showing of it, right? And he's showing people, and you'll notice in the center of the unit here, there's a milk crate with some wheels on it and a seat. And so,
right. Okay.
And there's some bike pedal here, and so. Early on here, he's sitting in it, and it's really difficult for him to start the process. But he finally gets it and approves it, and the crowd goes wild, and he's all mic'd up, and he's really happy. But watch what happens when someone must say, "Why don't you sit on top of it like a bike?"
Right.
Watch what happens.
Did I consider a more standard bicycle construction? I did, except that someone's built one of those. I was really hoping to get on top of this, but I just don't feel like once I built it, I didn't feel like it was gonna. Wow, wait a second. I don't. Dude! Holy shit! Oh, it's adult night. There are no children here. Oh, that is so awesome. Oh my God, I had no idea this would work.
Love it.
His enthusiasm's so infectious, isn't it?
I think it's worth sometime in the next couple of weeks. I'm definitely going to show you what he has going on in the interweb with Tested. Have you seen Tested? You would have seen the articles, some of the videos.
Yeah. No, I've heard.
That's a committed thing.
Yeah.
Like they put a lot into those shows, and he'll do a one-day build, and it'll be a lightsaber or Han Solo's blaster or the captain's chair from Star Trek, and because he's a prop builder, you know, that's what he does. But those, like, they'll test drones, all sorts of stuff. VR, Elite. One of the first Elite Dangerous videos I saw was them testing VR in Elite Dangerous with a Satec HOTOS.
Oh, yeah.
And I was hooked. I was hooked on that video. Had to go and get it. So yeah, lots of people have taken the Strandbeest and tried to make it their own.
Mm-hmm.
In the past 20 years, I have built a lot of machines powered by a drill, a bandsaw, a little lawnmower, even a little mini bike.
I'm sold, right? Absolutely sold. Yep. Powered by a drill.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't it cool? So you got to love, and the whole video was 5.5 minutes, is a lot of him just sort of flying around. But you'd think it's all made of metal, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Well, it's all spray painted.
Yeah,
wood,
it's all
is it?
spray
Yeah,
painted
yeah,
timber.
yeah.
But it looks robotic, when you see it. You see it out on the street, all shiny and polished. But I'm going to keep an eye on this guy because he just likes to make a lot of really cool shit that's run by a drill. And it's
And I look at that, a million views. Everybody's got one of these themes.
Absolutely.
And it's hilarious.
it's really good. It's addictive to watch. Like you just go down this rat hole, and the more you see, the more you look, the more you find.
Sometimes when you're doing that, you go look at the comment section. The top comment, it's got about 1,000 thumbs up, and it says, I started watching music videos. It's 2:00 in the morning. How the hell did I get here?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Oddest thing ever. Cool.
Yeah.
Did you notice though that it's actually was quite jerky and it's as a mode of transport, it left a lot to be desired. These guys had a different idea.
Okay. Cajun crawler. Okay. I'm interested already. Oh.
Huh?
That's cool. That's amazing.
Watch the speed he gets up. I think he gets so much speed up that when he goes to stop, he's got too much top heavy.
Oh!
So I think that's why a lot of them chose this style.
Okay.
But how cool is it? And look how flat
Yeah.
the ride is for the person. So that's the trick for the drill guy. He needs to get a couple more drills and a few more legs.
Yeah. I agree.
And the thing I like about this, it's steerable as well. There's sort of one side stops while the other one powers around. So yes, these are this is the Cajun crawler that I came across. And look, it motors, man.
Yeah. All right, that's crazy.
And when you think about it, there's not a huge leap from the wind on the beach version. So how much power is being used there? So you got to wonder, considering or putting it up against something like a scooter or where there's wheel friction and axle friction and you lose. It's quite an inefficient way to motor. Well, it's not bad, but this I think is better. I'd love to see those figures. Ooh, didn't know there was any speed stuff going on. Like that steering is pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah. You can do you can turn on a dime. It can
Look at
basically
that.
turn within its own length. Whoa, we nearly lost it there.
That's outstanding. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
absolutely. So someone then compared it to another common. This is the clan linkage, and you'll see as they walk that they're very similar in feeling like sort of a crawling animal across the ground, but this is sort of a simulation.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell. They've just sort of kicked a sim off, and it starts to accelerate away from the other one.
Mm-hmm.
I love these little mechanical processes that mimic real world sort of animals and
I've seen examples of software that that does a kind of an evolution on these, and it'll then adjust the lengths of the rods.
Oh yeah.
Right, and some of the other parameters associated with it,
Yeah.
and it'll breed 15.
Yeah.
Then it'll race them, take the top 3, breed those, race them.
That's
you know,
awesome.
and then after a while, you get something that, and I've seen it produce things that no human would produce because they often end up asymmetrical. Right, and they've got the worst, most horrible gait. This sort of, this sort of Quasimodo gait, but they humble along, and they just bounce along, and they move pretty fast and stuff.
It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? You sort of shortlist until you're left with the gun.
The best of the best is really what it is, right?
So yeah, it's certainly
it's out.
Yeah, it got away
Facing
from
that.
it. It was good. So that then. Leads to toys and various models that you can get. This one looked very nice, but I was also impressed with the grand movie trailer-esque music and we needed Tom here to translate. Very smooth and sleek and matte black, and it's got military written all over it.
Yeah. Intelligent electronic.
In fact, something like that with a bit of weight to it, maybe sort of this size, could potentially be a minesweeper, couldn't it? Could stomp its way across, because if you got all those legs going across a field.
They used to put all sorts of crazy things on the front of tanks to do that.
Yeah.
That job. So yeah.
So this would be a sort of throwaway tech in the field, wouldn't it? You could easily sort of walk into a situation and assess it, and maybe even put in some.
You can include printing technology. You could probably print up the legs and stuff.
Yeah.
And if the legs get blown off or whatever, you just print up some more.
Print up a new one. You could have self-printing, couldn't you?
Start breeding itself.
So, where I wanted to end up with this one is leave the Strandbeest for a minute.
The Strandbeest was certainly the green version. We're now going into robotic
absolutely
territory here.
Now, I found this really cool talk. And this guy's more of an artist/scientist, which is always a good mix. And he's talking about waves, oscillation, the efficiency of waves, and things like that. And just have a look.
This right here it's a circle, and it's got a bunch of strings. And the strings go, to various sections. And right now, all the strings are tied in a knot, and they're right in the center of the circle. And if you move them to one side, you get a wave. And if you roll around, you get a sine wave.
I think that's so cool, man.
There's a couple of different languages we can talk about this.
It's the simplicity of it and the immediate gratification of your mind going, I see exactly how that works. And it's beautiful and it's brilliant.
In other words, it has a frequency, and the frequency is how fast the wave is moving. And another one is that it has a wavelength, and the wavelength is the distance between, where it starts to repeat again. If you, repeated it on, keep going with this wave until we got to Canada.
So he's talking about this mechanism, and he's taken that really basic principle and broken it out into three-dimensional.
Ooh, okay.
And you get this. And it's just stunning. And he said, because he's got multiple ones, right? Because you've got the two X and Y, right?
Yep.
And if you turn them at the right rate, you get like an ocean sort of swell. If you turn this one at half the rate to that, then it sort of looks like the ocean is sweeping through, like the wind is sweeping the swell through. And then he uses these sorts of things, and his final sort of thing that he raises down out of the top of the theatre. Look at this stunning thing, and then when it finally comes down, you get to see look at the amount of strings.
Holy dooly.
Yeah, and they're little beads. It's crazy, man. There's a lot of work, but man, it's impressive. And it probably will just have a little motor running this big wheel that's sort of...
and it probably has an X and Y, so
Yeah.
there's one motor running
Yep.
and one motor running perpendicular to it.
Yeah. And you can see that he just gets more and more elaborate. Look at this one. And it's all based on the same premise, but you move away from a wave or the representation of the wave in different objects, but using the same science. So, what does this mean in the real world? And by the way, this was Ruben Margolin.
Margolin, sounds fair.
Yep. Or Margolin.
Okay.
Yeah. It's doing exactly the same thing. Right?
That's amazing.
Isn't it? This thing will crawl through a hole like a snake and then feed itself through the hole. And because the skinny part will just keep moving forward.
Yeah. It pushes itself through.
Yeah.
That looks amazing, doesn't it?
It's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's really just driven by this one motor at the back of it that just rotates. Very, very efficient, yeah? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. You can just imagine the type of stuff that you can do with robotics. We've already had a look at quadcopters, and now I don't know what people are making crawling machines, and they're making robot worms.
Yeah. And playing with scale. So you're getting big ass robots that are constructing ships and things like that in a fraction of the time, prefabbing buildings and things like that, like commercial production lines. Imagine where we've come in 130 or 140 odd years, and the scale is just the small and the large, and it's the same with robotics.
I think there are open cut mines now that are just, those big super trucks.
Yeah.
They're just GPS
All
robot
autonomous.
trucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Up and down all day, pulling stuff out.
Yep, and you know how I saw a story doco on that once, and a couple of years ago, and apparently women are the best controllers in the control room.
Okay, why?
They task juggle
Oh, okay.
better than men, and they're cooler under pressure. You know, when they're knowledgeable, they're cooler under pressure. Men can be cool and dumb at the same time, and often resulting
That's how
in
we multitask.
catastrophic failure, like catastrophic results, because in our we found it better to stand our ground
Yes.
in blaze and bravado instead of using our head.
But at least we're cool when we're done.
Yeah. So let's bring this puppy home. This is Disney Research Hub.
Ooh.
Check them out regularly, man, because they throw money at brilliantly young people to develop some really, really cool shit.
Right.
And this one is a computational design mechanism or a system that allows you to draw the arc that you want the bit to, like say you've got a horse, you can grab the pivot point that you want and you draw the arc, and it works out where the cogs and the struts need to be to make that a mechanical process.
Okay.
So if you turn this cog, that thing will, and then they have two. I'll show you one of them.
Okay.
So what we're looking at is a relationship of the struts and the distances that they're pinned together as they come off a gear and cog system
Mm-hmm.
with one handle. So
Yep.
it's all about this one handle. And what they've done is they've worked out a system
Oh, I
that
see.
works back the other way. So all you have to do is work out the
This is like the evolution thing I was talking
the
about.
vector shape, the curve that you want.
Yeah.
But yet it goes, and then it works backwards to tell you what has to exist in order to create that.
The mechanical thing that will do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So let's see here.
Ooh,
Yeah.
wow.
And it doesn't matter how elaborate, it'll work out where to put it.
Huh.
It's awesome. It's awesome because these are we can track these things from reference. We can track the curve from any joint on an animal or on a person,
Oh, yeah.
which means you feed that in
Yeah.
with the
yeah.
parts. So the equation, the more static facts, I guess, you can feed into the equation, like the length of the limb and where is where is it joined and that sort of stuff. The easier it is.
So you
to
can make a
work it out.
cheetah versus a turtle or something or other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I think it's awesome. I think it's a really, really because it's an old school thing too. It's still a mechanism. It's still, it's not all virtual.
Yeah.
They're doing this so they can build it.
Yeah.
And what they want to do is build it so that it's still one crank.
Yep.
So you've got to offset the left and the right, and
So this is how you make a walking robot.
and
You have to design
or a Disney animatronic
a Disney. Good point.
character.
A very good point. Yeah. Very good point.
Yeah,
Yeah. So when they've got one of their that's interesting.
pretty cool. That they go so high tech. This is cool. They go so high tech in order to go low tech.
Yeah. Yeah, the animation that you can get out of it, that's incredible.
It's awesome, man. Like this, you watch. These are some of the machines that they've created based on their calculations, on their simulations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So these are the results. That's the frog one.
Wow.
Yeah. It's lovely animation though. Look at it. It's so offset
Yeah.
and secondary. It's awesome. It's really cool. It just feels natural, and yet it's totally mechanic. And you can see those pins in some of the cogs going up and down the shaft to get the rocking back and forward. So that's internal, and so it doesn't rely on a box sitting underneath it. That's impressive.
Clockwork lion.
It is.
It's
It's really cool.
that's awesome.
Look at it. And some of the films of, I'd say, 70s, 80s, and in the 90s, this method would have been used live on stage using puppeteer animatronic mix.
So they've got offset cogs there that aren't circular.
Yeah, to give that oscillation. Yeah, how good's this one? Like, look at it leaning.
Yeah.
The weight even transfers. How good is that?
That's pretty amazing, that is.
This is pretty cool. He's Bernie. And Bernie looks like he's had a few. How cool is that?
Scorpion leg. Yeah, right.
It's awesome.
Wow. It's
And then
getting pretty
run it all off
complicated.
the one,
Yeah.
all off the one motor. It's intense. So let me pause that for a second so everyone can appreciate who contributed to that program, and of course Disney Research, the guys at Disney Research Hub. It's an awesome site. It's definitely something we'll check out regularly because they're into this face replacement stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that we come across in our regular sort of research sessions in our field that touch, if not come from, these sorts of programs. And Disney are definitely putting back in. So that's my round trip from our beast. What's it called again?
The Strandbeest. Or whatever it was
Strandbeest.
called.
That's it. I always forget the Strand. From the Strandbeest to Disney. That's where we went today on our robotic journey, and we didn't even touch. It's the tip of the iceberg. You got the DARPA boys and the military playing with the prancing animals and things like that.
It's kind of a bit close to the stuff I was talking about, actually. Strangely, coincidentally.
Yeah, absolutely. Autonomous sort of processes and
robots, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think we can't avoid that's exactly where we're going. Where robots, I think in our lifetime, Dan, they're going to build houses, cars. They're going to do all those menial labour things. It'll be unheard of to go out and dig holes and build houses and lay pipe and that sort of stuff. We'll all become engineers of some level. We're either inventing stuff or we're running the stuff we invented last time.
Yep.
Or we're thinking of better ways to manage the stuff we invented last time. And it'll all be around engineering. You know what I mean? I think that's where we're all merging towards this process of creation of stuff.
Teching up, basically.
But the doing,
higher tech,
that'll be outsourced
society
to technology. Before too long, technology is going to outpace even third world prices for creating iPhones and things like that. It'll be cheaper for machines to just manage the whole process.
Yeah, 3D print up a new machine and get the old one to build the new one for you. And
absolutely.
Yeah, you can watch YouTube in the meantime.
3D printing is the big part of it. Definitely a big part of it. Especially the fact that you can mock up so easily. You needed a whole team of fitters and turners and tradesmen to actually mock up your ideas. Now you can just print the bloody thing out in an afternoon and test it.
Yeah. Probably test it in 3D before you even get it out into the real world.
Absolutely. Those simulations are getting a lot better as well. Yeah, absolutely. But I definitely love this stuff. It's tangible. It's it's mechanical. You can touch it. You got to grease it. It'll probably make noise as it moves and everything. I just like it, but it also presses right up against creepy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's a I might even bring it in next time. There's a robot that was used in a Mars movie with not Kiefer Sutherland. Who played Batman that we love to forget?
Michael Keaton?
No, he wasn't too bad. The Michael Keaton Batman was pretty good with Jack Nicholson as the...
Val Kilmer?
Yes.
Okay.
Val Kilmer, I believe, is in this movie. I may be totally wrong, but it was a Mars movie. They went to Mars, and the robotic companion for the mission was this quadrupedal animal. At least that's what you thought it was. But as the movie developed, you realised that the limbs can actually rotate all the way around, and when you can rotate joints in any direction, you're anything. You can be a gorilla, a panther, a man. Like you can get up on two legs, and and this thing goes a little crazy, I think. And I remember the way it moved. It was way fast. Like you knew instantly as soon as this thing moved around the people, you knew if that thing turned on you, you'd be gone. There's no you'd be 4 people would be dead before the first one blinked.
It's like the animatronics on Jurassic Park. Before, I understand, people had to get a safety briefing, and they have to say, "This is a robot Tyrannosaurus Rex."
Yeah.
Just because it's a robot doesn't mean it's not going to kill you. It can kill you.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, right. It's a robot T-Rex.
It's 9 tons.
Yes. It's actually a robot of a thing with teeth, and it can kill you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try and bring it in because I remember it was one of the most unsettling robots And we've had many in film. Maybe that's a subject that we might talk about in one of the shows. Good robots from film.
We got to get back to some film. We got to get back to things like Ice Pirates.
Yeah.
And I think we got to do some Tron. And what was the one you were going to do? Last Starfighter.
Last Starfighter.
So we got to not forget to do those.
With robots and 80s movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the worst films in the 80s sci-fi history, or I would say sci-fi history in general, right?
Yeah.
One of the worst. Had one of the best robots in it. And it was a Disney movie called The Black Hole.
I remember The Black Hole, and yeah, it did have.
It had a cool robot, man. The bad guy robot, Maximilian, had
I
these
don't
spinning
remember.
blade hands. And at one point, a guy tries to protect himself with a big, thick book, and the paper just shreds everywhere. And it was a Disney movie. But I remember there was the big, scary robot with the bladey hands, and then there were these little floating ones.
Yeah, little ball things.
Yeah.
I remember those.
Yeah.
I remember those.
It did not age well. I remember in the 80s, I loved it.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
it was great. Man, it did not age well.
Yeah. We got to go back and have a look at some of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting fact what ages well and what doesn't.
Mm.
I don't know.
That might be it.
That might be it.
Yeah.
Might be done.
I can close the mess that I've made of this desktop here. Get back to something like that. So
All right.
next week, hopefully we've got a special guest. I'll leave it as a surprise
Mm-hmm.
and see who we turn up next week with. But that's it for me, Dan. Any parting words for the show?
Still want those topics that we talked about, Tron, Last Starfighter, perhaps be in people's minds, because want those to come back with vengeance.
Yep.
So that's all at the moment, I think. And leave people with our motto, save often.
Save often.
Mm.